year respected. Expert level information, entertainment, education. Rev Yearwood got you covered as you hit your destination. Climate rules everything around me. Dream. For those who lost focus, close your eyes and just dream. Open your third eye, now the world is your office. Coolest show you know is the Hip Hop Caucus.
Hey everybody, this is Rev Yearwood, and welcome to the coolest show. I am excited for this conversation. I am talking to my friend who's way up there in Fairbanks, Alaska, Alyssa Quintyne. How are you, Alyssa? How's it going?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. So we were just kind of talking a little earlier. Is it freezing in Alaska? Do you have on 8 coats?
No, it is quite mild actually in the interior. It's above zero, and right now we would be 20 below, 30 below with at least 2 coats.
20 below?
Yeah.
So we got to start there. Okay. So you may answer this question because I'm going to go right into you have a little bit of Caribbean roots that has gotten you up there to Alaska, but I want to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
So for folks who don't know, who is Alyssa Quintyne?
Well, I mean, in short, I am a community organizer. I'm an artist and a little bit more recently a published researcher, but I've been doing research for quite a bit since college. But that's me in a nutshell.
So I mentioned your Caribbean background. Where does your
Mhm.
Caribbean background, for folks who don't know, come from?
Yeah, I'm from Barbados. I'm known as a Yankee. I was born in the United States, but my entire family is from, and a lot of them are still in Barbados.
So that's my background. I was born here in Louisiana. I have family and friends in Louisiana, but my mom and my dad are both from Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm.
And I have a lot of family and friends. So we're very, very similar. They don't call me Yankee though. I guess maybe they're too scared to call me Yankee. I'm not too sure. They should. I'm not sure that one. But you have a famous person from Barbados that we all know. Who was that person? Folks who don't know who that person is.
Rihanna. And that's the way you pronounce her name is actually Rihanna, not Rihanna.
There it is. See, we learned something. I actually talking about your prime minister.
Oh.
Nah,
Okay,
you were
yeah,
correct, but that was an easy.
I mean,
that was
that's
an
who
easy one.
everybody asks me if I know it. But do you know Rihanna? Like, how would I know Rihanna? No, that'd be cool though.
Well, you know. And now I'm gonna start saying Rihanna. I want to say now I can't. Now I gotta say Rihanna. That's the way it's supposed to be said. But you know, she's an amazing climate activist. Did you know that?
Yes.
Yeah, phenomenal. Actually, in her foundation, gave out $15 million to literally deal with the climate crisis. But also, the prime minister of Barbados is someone to be reckoned with as well. And she has been doing some great work. So there is some powerful, powerful, powerful people who are coming out of that. But you are coming to us via Alaska and Fairbanks. So let's talk about this literally how that happened. Like, how did you end up in Alaska?
Well, my parents were kind of brought to this country in early 80s and, did the whole, legal alien thing, trying to figure out how to survive.
Mhm.
Met in Brooklyn, New York, did the couple thing. Dad joined the military because that's what was available to you as a immigrant man of color. And they got stationed to Kentucky some years after that. Then I was born. And then we got stationed here to Fort Wainwright, Alaska, when I was 6. So that's how we got here.
So you've been there most of your life then. I mean, so you are an Alaskan and all.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much how you would identify. That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into all of that good stuff. The work you do as the interior organizing manager with the Alaska Center. We're going to get into a little bit about democracy. We're going to get into some salmon and fisheries and clean water. We're going to get into climate and clean energy. and how you organize, because you really are you are there to help strengthen and empower the people to protect that amazing place. I was there, as you know, I was there
Mhm.
and spoke at the Alaska Center. What was that called? Was that like a
It was our
that's
auction.
the auction? Yeah,
Mhm.
was there for that, and was it was a great experience. Actually, it was a beautiful time to be there. So we're gonna get on into all of that. I actually want to start, as you know, the coolest show is the coolest show. We do a lot with artivism. Have you heard that term before?
Mhm.
So you are very much an artivist, right? Because
Mm.
you are someone who is an activist. Obviously, that's what you do during your daytime, and then I guess all the other times you are an artist, and you are an acclaimed artist.
Okay. That's
Well,
good.
I think so. I mean, when they start putting your
Okay.
stuff in, I mean, when they putting you in museums now, I mean, that's when
Right.
you know. I mean, even when they hang you on the street corner next to the gasoline spot. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you can still be acclaimed, down by the fish market. But no, they putting your stuff, and you're curating, right? Let's talk about that
Mhm.
because specifically, you're also centering a lot of your work um, on people of color. You've been the co-curator of Black Alaskan Art Matters.
Mhm.
You've been dealing with a lot of art specifically that is beautiful, particularly of Black
Thank you.
women of color who are just in reflection and more importantly, 'cause we've done a lot on care and repair here on the Coolest Show. Um,
Mhm.
and so you are ensuring that your subjects look not only just beautiful, but there is a sense of just of safety. Where does that come from? When did you start to be an artist? Did that something you just started when you were 6, when you were a little kid, or when did that come? And then how did your art evolve?
Yeah, I have been drawing since I remember. It's just always something I've done. And I think, I really strive to really make sure that whatever I do, especially when it comes to art, is that it's intersectional and it provides us, it
Mm,
provides a safe place for people who are marginalized, in particular Black women, because I know that when I was growing up and whatever it was, whether it be in education, whether it be in art spaces, whether it be in academia, it was not safe. And especially being, a more quiet, you know, Bayesian girl that, looks Black but isn't a Black American, you are really not treated well.
mm,
And so it became less about, woe is me and, wanting to suffer and just focusing on creating the space that I needed, and I know that that's gonna be the case for a lot of other people, so that's really where it comes to, is creating a space for us, by us, in the ways that we need to, and I know if I feel a certain way about whether it be my body, whether it be anxiety, whether it be, all the different things that are happening around the world, I can only imagine what another Black woman is going through too. So, to have
mm.
a little piece that says, "I get you," means the world.
No, and it's beautiful. Folks who want to check it out can obviously go to the Anchorage Museum.org. You can see Centering Black Narratives, the art of Alyssa Quintyne there. You can check out some of her pieces. It's amazing. I was checking it out. A lot of your pieces are women who are nude,
Mhm,
and they're beautiful, and they have either this beautiful flowing hair, or they're in communing with other women. There's just joy. Is that
mhm,
part of what you're trying to establish here? Is that the goal? Is this to be free? I'm just trying to. I mean, 'cause
mhm,
it's just beautiful, but it's also then this art of you know a little girl and her father. I mean, it shows us happiness. I'm just trying to think because most people would think, okay, here's this Black woman who's in Fairbanks, Alaska or in Alaska, and she feels you're not enjoying the moose, and which I'm sure you could. Obviously, you can draw anything you want, I'm sure, but
Mhm.
clearly you're drawing something that in Alaska you want them to see. So, what is it that you want them to see? What do you want us to see?
Mhm. I think I want 'em to see us. There's this
Mm,
very big perspective, I think, of, when you're in Alaska, you're outdoors, you're hunting, you're snowshoeing, you're dog mushing, or you're mining, and that is, to be frank, a very white perspective, and it's intentional. That's not the lives of every single person who lives in Alaska. And, some of us we're artists and we live in urban areas and we are trying to create community with each other. But I think more in an artistic aspect, when you're learning about when you do more figure work or, portrait work, of course you're learning about a lot of the, grandfathers of art, the Renaissance and like how a lot of people are, posed in a particular way and how that kind of remained religion. You don't see a lot of Black figures, and you certainly don't see a lot of Black women figures. And the ones that you are shown, they're usually shown in a position of servitude or extorting labor. And I don't want to, exhibit that in my work. I want to exhibit, us being formed in the same sort of way of repose and beauty and, just existence. And so kind of flipping it on its head and putting, Black figures in those positions and in those poses kind of subverts that artistic trope. And, I think it's very subtle, but it's, one way to kind of illuminate people in a different light rather than just what we're kind of being spoon-fed as, what's artistic and who can be seen as beautiful, who can be seen as ethereal.
mm. You're also an organizer. How does art impact organizing, or help organizing, or hinder organizing?
I think it's a part of it, organizing is about, working with the community where it's at and giving people an avenue, from where they are to where they wanna be. And, I think that art hasn't really been used and utilized in a way that it needs to. When you look at the civil rights era and, all the people in Black art, art was a part of that.
Mm,
There were muralists, there there were jazz bands, and, all different types of, creatives who were at the forefront of those movements and uprisings. And so returning art back to organizing, so that the photographer has a role in the next uprising, that we're gonna need flyers, we're gonna need signs, working with local artists to design those things, teach people how to weave paste, teach people how to make a banner in less than an hour because you've gotta be in front of a courthouse. Like, all of these are skills that, you don't have to be, somebody who's been drawing for 20 years. You can be somebody who barely knows how to hold a paintbrush and still be able to, shove out a banner when you need it. And, that kinda gets rid of, this concept of, like, you have to be good at something in order for it to be successful or to be useful. It's not true. So, I think art can help in that way of, you can give people valuable skills, and it's also, it's nice to have an outlet. It's nice to be able to create something together with other people. And it can be incredibly healing,
mm.
Sometimes you get tired of the banners and you get tired of the uprisings and you're still healing from the last one and the results of it. Sometimes you just need to have some downtime with the people around you and create something together in that way. And there you go.
How important is art for care and repair in the movement?
Art is how we take care of ourselves.
Mm,
We, hair braiding. is art. And that is a form of care of how we take care of ourselves. Cooking is art. And that's how we take care of ourselves. It's not just the tangible and the physical, watercolors and pastels or whatever. It is storytelling, it's music, it's creating music. All of that is intrinsic. It's how communities grow and remember and grieve, but also how we vision, and allowing ourselves to be in those spaces with each other to create the future that we want to see, create the present that we want to be in, but also remember where we come from. That is how we take care of ourselves. And I think people are starting to recognize that and realize that and utilize that more, because just attacking a problem straight at, we're us and they're them, it's going to wear you down to the point where you can't do it anymore. So you have to take care of yourself. And that's the way that you can do it.
Would you call yourself an intersectional environmentalist?
I definitely strive to. I think, at least the way I see it, is that you've never really achieved it. You've always got to work at it, but that's definitely what I center my work on.
And for folks who are listening, what does that mean to be an intersectional environmentalist?
To me, it's about remembering that everything is interconnected, that, being involved in climate justice and climate action isn't just about, protecting waterways or the trees or animals. It's recognizing how all of us impact each other, how everything that we're doing impacts, our animals, the lands, the waters, and what the waters and lands and animals provide, how that also impacts us. And, looking at it from that aspect, that we are doing all of this to make sure that the place that we are in is livable with the beings that we share this world around, is less about, looking at, for example, looking at salmon as a resource, but looking at salmon as another being. And that if salmon go away, then you don't have anything to eat, then you don't have anything to work for if you're a fisher. Then, different animals in the ecosystem now go away, which impacts birding, which impacts different waterways and, the chemistry within those rivers, which also impact, the things that eat the salmon and that the salmon eat, and things go out of balance. So, but it's also recognizing it from the impact of us as human beings and what we're doing to each other, and how racism, sexism, patriarchy, white supremacy, how that all has a play in climate justice, and that you cannot have climate justice without having gender justice, without having racial justice, without having a strong democracy, or whatever system that we're going to work towards, that all of that is interconnected, and working towards all of those issues are going to ensure that we have a livable future.
For folks who don't know Fairbanks, in that community, you would say that's an urban community from your standpoint. Would that be correct?
Hmm.
So, I mean, I've been around Alaska, and
Hmm.
I've also been in New York City and Los Angeles. So it looks a little different to me,
Yeah.
but I understand. And it was amazing because there's a lot of uniqueness within those urban centers. Describe that though, for folks who probably think, "What are you talking about? Urban centers in Alaska?"
I mean, we kind of consider it as if you're on the road system, right? You're in a city, and but it is very unique. It's completely different. It's not a city that you would compare a lot of places in the lower 48. But hey, it takes about less than 20 minutes to get to a grocery store from where I'm at. I've got running water. I've got electricity. I don't live dry, although there are places in our city that are dry. So we do have cities. They're just, Fairbanks is a smaller city, and it's very unique. We're a river town. Our river is, cuts right in the middle of town. And we don't have the big variety like New York does. We have like two Safeways and two Fred Meyers and a Walgreens, and that's our grocery stores. And we've got malls, but they're only one floor. So, there's a lot of difference, but it's really about what you have access to. We've got an airport, and we're on a major road system, and there are cities and villages who are off the road and who are off grid. So that is what we consider a little bit more rural areas. If you're off the road system and you kind of have to either fly or boat to get to that city or village. And then you, of course, have people who live in the bush who completely off grid, want nothing to do, with the city, but they still have their communities. So it
Mm.
just depends. Do you live on a road? Yes, then you're probably urban. If you don't, well, if you got a bike, or sorry, if you got a boat in, then you're probably a little bit rural.
Oh man, I mean, it's magnificent, beautiful. Let's speak about that river because I want to get to that. That's a main part of your city, and it's such an important part. And obviously, everything from clean air, clean water is important to your community there in Alaska. How is the struggle with that? I mean, it's there seems to be there's an indigenous aspect that has one way of life. There seems to be one, obviously, there's the community there that's based on fossil fuels throughout Alaska that has another look at how they're using the river. And he mentioned earlier the salmon and the fish, and obviously those who are using that. And you spoke about it in a very beautiful term, almost like in community with the fish and community with the river. How does all that come together now in now that we're 20 plus years into the 21st century? How do you see that evolving? And what are the
Mhm.
problems?
Well, I mean, where we're right now is kind of at the consequence of um our extraction. The climate crisis is causing a lot of warming and acidification of the oceans. And Alaska being the last place where salmon come to spawn and go back into the ocean, that's having a major impact here in the interior, where I don't quite remember the numbers off top of our head, but it's less than, I want to say, 200 salmon coming back into the Tanana, the Yukon. Um, the Tanana is used. It's a river that's kind of on the northern part of town. It's used for subsistence fishing, and a lot of people who live, in Fairbanks, especially in the Native communities, they have fishing camps, or along the Tanana, along the Yukon, and a lot of people during the summer will go back and try to fish. And this was the second year where fishing was closed, and so it
Mm,
meant that hundreds, if not thousands of people just in the interior, just if we're talking about Fairbanks proper, were not allowed to get fish. They had to go somewhere else.
wow.
And that means death. That means death
Mm,
for a lot of people. That means, you can't fill your freezers, obviously, but it also means that the skills of setting up camp and being able to cut fish, being able to hang and dry, and being able to provide for your family, your community, gone, not able to do
mm,
it. And so
wow.
it continues to lead to the displacement of indigenous people, into more urban areas where you no longer can make a living. You no longer can pass down knowledge to your family, to kids about fish. You have to go to Western school. You have to get, a job in town. You have to, or what a lot of extractive companies do, you have to maybe hopefully get an engineering job or whatever at some mine, because that's what's going to pay you 40, 50 bucks and, a season. And that's how you make a living. So it's this constant tension between extraction, and it's very strong and long history, not just in Alaska but in the interior, versus how people have been living for thousands of years. And
Mm,
not because we want to be sentimental, but literally it has sustained us for thousands of years for a reason. So to me, as somebody who doesn't really fish and isn't indigenous in that way, it's one of those things where you start to feel powerless because it's not an issue that you yourself can like do something about. It's just something that you have to keep your eyes on and, try to help in other ways. But how I see it evolving is that with a lot of things that are happening, something's going to give.
mm,
Either the state is going to recognize that, it's not just about, the Southeast and Bristol Bay, that we're having salmon crashes and crises throughout the state. And that perhaps the, legislation that we have, because you'll hear that from um, a lot of our elected leaders, is that Alaska has the strongest constitution and strongest protections out of all the states. Not true. It's like it might be strongly worded in the constitution, but when it actually is applied to, on the ground in these situations, we have no protections. Extraction companies are always favored, and we have to fight tooth and nail
mm.
to get some resemblance of what we need to survive. And when things go wrong, when we have, tailing ponds leak or fail completely, when ecosystems start to change, whatever it be, then it's us who have to clean up the mess. It's us who have to rebuild, not the state, not the companies doing it. So either they're going to recognize that and recognize that people are at a point where we are probably going to have a very big uprising in Alaska, and they don't want that. And they're going to start listening, and they're going to start implementing, the policies and protections we've been asking for, I don't know, 50 plus years. Or they're gonna continue down this road.
Okay.
People are going to die, and people are going to continue to leave the state because they can't afford to live here, they can't survive here. And then they're going to have every sort of, question that a lot of, um, libertarian and liberal and, political pundits acts of, "Why are people leaving? Why don't people understand what's going on?" And I'm like, you shouldn't have to ask that question, it's obvious. But, that's the consequence is, people are gonna have to leave, and that's gonna, again, contribute to the displacement of not of all marginalized people, and I would hate to see that, and I know that, many of us are gonna fight for that not to happen, but that's kind of the reality,
Mm.
that you're confronted with.
There's a term that says either you shape policy or policy shapes you. How does democracy play in this? I mean, how I know part of your work is obviously voter engagement and doing that part of it, but how does that play, particularly with this, you know, indigenous perspective? I mean, is that seen? I mean, these are also nations, right? We have to respect
Mhm,
them, and that that folks who don't know Alaska, um, as a state actually isn't that old, and people need to understand that
mhm,
this is not like one of the East Coast places. So it's very, very. This is not. This is something that most people who've been around, most boomers, were around when Alaska was created. So this is still an evolving, and there's very much an indigenous community. So how does democracy within this new, not, obviously not, for those who are a little younger, not new, but how does
mhm,
democracy play within that setting? Two, as you're saying, literally save people's lives.
mhm. Well, I think it's similar to what a lot of folks are seeing around the nation is, we're starting to uncover a lot of the, um, discrimination and inaccessibility of elections,
Mm,
and we're trying to fight that. Particularly in our community, what I specifically do is I work really heavily on municipal elections, because those are the closest elections to you. Well, yes, federal elections and, um, utility elections are very important. Your municipal elections, your school board, your borough assembly, your city council, when they do or don't do something, it impacts you right then and there. These are the people who make sure that, teachers have benefits and are retained. These are the people who make sure that roads get plowed, that there is an actual public transit system, that, when you turn on your faucet, your water comes on and it's mostly clean for the most part, you know, and they're the ones that are setting, at least in Fairbanks, they work a lot in terms of air quality and soil quality and water quality. So that impacts what you can grow, where you can grow, what may come out of the ground, what may not come out of the ground. So, what I do is, really try to find where those pieces of inequity are and work to change that. And for a lot of people, that is not necessarily, caring or, not voting because, oh, I don't want to. It's because that's what you'll hear nationwide, is that especially with the younger generation, we're empathetic. And I remember being in college and being livid about that because I knew that that wasn't true. It's not that people aren't getting engaged, because they don't care. They're not getting engaged because they can't. Why would
Mm,
someone spend hours in a line voting for somebody they don't know, for something that they don't understand? Because there's no information to find anything. There's no way for them to to ask questions about propositions, about the candidates without getting a whole, salesman pitch. So, that's what I do is I try to make sure that people are aware of what these elections are, what it means, and if they have questions, to have that conversation. Because that is what's missing from our political structure is, again, community. Who do you ask? Hey, I'm thinking of voting for this person. Who should I vote for? Or what do you think about this proposition? Why does this matter? Why should I care? Having, a space where, or a person in your life where you can do that means all the difference between somebody who, yeah, I don't get involved, to, oh, this is serious. This is a big issue. And then they start going to borough assembly meetings and they start getting engaged in like whatever organization, whatever piece of the work that really hits them, that they want to engage in. And that's the stuff that changes lives, because we
mm,
might not always be able to change an immediate outcome, but the more people that are engaged in an issue, more people who have eyes on it, who are aware of what's going on, means that we're able to hold these elected leaders accountable when they do or don't do something that they're supposed to. And that scares them because a lot of elected leaders have, it's like, oh, I get elected and then, oh, I've got to deal with the real world now. And they kind of forget that this is a relationship, that we're working together to make sure that we have a livable future. I elected you for this reason, and you ran for that reason to be able to make that reason happen. So, again, the more people that you have engaged in the community, they're gonna certainly say, "Hey, that's not what you signed up for. That's not what we hired you for. That's not what we're working on. Bring it back and let's get to business."
mm,
And then, so, for example, when it comes to the fisheries, that's not something that we can vote on, right? There's no legislative policy. There's nothing on the books that's being changed in this moment. Where that issue lands is with a lot of our tribal governments and fish and game. So, while people like me who are not part of a tribal nation, but who are a part of the community, the more that we know what's going on, we can stack those meetings with 100 bodies, 200
mm,
bodies saying, you need to do what's right. And we are going to ensure that you are going to do what's right, or we are going to vote you out.
mm. When I was there, I spoke about the fisheries and the salmon. That was part of my spiel when I was there
Mhm.
speaking. Um, it it seems like I'm not sure if some of those folks were listening. Obviously, it's not there, but people who obviously had the power to make some things happen. I'm not sure the community was obviously listening and gave me such a warm reception and love when I was there in Alaska. But since that time, this is my keep it real question with you. It seems like because of the extraction, because of the mining, because of what's happening, y'all are going to lose not only your fisheries, y'all are going to lose, to me, what makes Alaska, Alaska, the salmon. That's sad to me. And it just seems like greed and extraction, which is the core root of the fossil fuel thing, is just going to wipe away what can actually keep us living. How, what is beyond what you just said from packing those meetings? Is it inevitable, or can we create something that can take these challenges and make them success stories?
Mhm. I would say that, the way that I see it, I forget who said it, but I wanna say that it was Audre Lorde who said it. She said something along the lines of, "The world has ended for me a million times.
Mm,
It ends when the moon sets and rises again when the sun comes up." And, I think that, to me, it's not inevitable. There are so many ways in which this issue can be tackled. Um, at least, in our community, there's so many steps that happen before then. And, to also remember that, we don't want to catastrophize it, right? That we're here in this moment right now because there were hundreds of people doing everything that they possibly could in their lifetimes so that we would not see the worst case scenario. And that's what we're doing right now. We're doing everything that we can in our lifetime so we don't see the worst case scenario and the people after us don't see the worst case scenario. I do feel that that's the reality that we're holding, that yes, if we don't do anything and we just let, extraction and greed and, capitalism and all of these different things run, take the wheel completely, yes, that is exactly what will happen. But what's important to remember is that it's happened before. And we have both seen the consequences and we've seen how people rebuild. So I don't think that it's inevitable. I think it is something that will happen and that we might get close to if we do nothing.
mm,
And I think the root of it is really less about greed and more about white supremacy and comfort. Because the thing that is very apparent in Fairbanks is, this is a white catered town. And these are people who are trying to sustain generations of, something that has built an entire city, multiple cities. And to them, that is what's comfortable. It scares, oil and gas and coal companies when we're starting to talk about renewable energies, when we're talking about solarized, because they know that the industry is dying. They know it. So they're trying every single possible thing to do to keep those industries running so that when it is time for those industries to close, they've got their stack and everybody else can get laid off because they're good. I think that that's more inevitable than, a salmon species that has been here longer than us.
mm.
That's just going to go away. What's going to happen is we are the ones that's going to lose. The world is going, the world itself is going to have to rebuild ourselves. So I think we need to take that lesson, um, and, recognize that there is a now and there is an after oil, because it is crashing. It is going to get to a point where that is no longer sustainable, even for the executives, even for the CEOs. They're going to have to find something new. And what is not inevitable is that whatever that new thing is, whatever we transition towards, means all of us. That's the work that we have to focus on, is making sure that whatever we transition to, we're able to access, and that includes renewables. That includes making sure that, we have better subsistence policies so that people can fish. Because it wasn't that people couldn't fish, it's that the state wasn't letting them. It was confiscating, their nets and, trying to arrest people who were, fishing on subsistence because of the low salmon numbers. So making sure we have better policies, making sure that we have mutual aid set up because, yes, when grocery stores continue to fail, when emergency services can't get to you for whatever reason, we're going to need to take care of ourselves. So how do we do that?
Mm,
So that's how I see it is, it might not, we can't control that, but what we can control is how we respond to it.
that's right. Listen, I just have two more questions for you. One, you mentioned solarized Fairbanks. What is that? That seems like that's part of the solution.
Yeah, it's a, community-led initiative, where we work together, and help people purchase solar together, and we also help with sort of the technical aspects and, the financial aspects of getting solar energy, all with the goal of making it more accessible and affordable and equitable here in Fairbanks.
Hmm. So my last question is going to put all this together,
Mhm.
hopefully. And my last question is taking all of you, and I want you to speak freely on this. And as uh, Alyssa, the artist, um, who does beautiful paintings and drawings, as Alyssa, the interior organizing manager, who's
Mhm.
out there organizing there in Fairbanks, um, as Alyssa, who is this beautiful Black person who has her roots that it starts from Barbados, obviously from Africa, and is now in Alaska. Speak to why this moment regarding the climate crisis, speak to Black women, Black trans women, Black queer women, um, speak to Black women right now about the importance of this moment to you.
Mhm. I would say we are needed, as dangerous and violent as this world is showing itself, and as we're uncovering uncovering more atrocities that has happened, we are ever more needed. And what I mean by that is, we have to live because we are the ones who are going to carry the world forward. We are needed. And we have to show the world how to heal and how to rebuild and how to take care of one another. And how we do that is by taking care of ourselves. And, it's not about, self-care and, oh, I'm going to live in my villain era and do whatever I want. It's about really healing the hurt that this world has caused and taking a step back and recognizing what's important and really centering yourself in what you want to do with the rest of your life, because this is the only life you get, unfortunately. So how do we want to do that? How do we want to heal? How do we want to live? And what is the future that we want to live in? And start living that every single day when you can, and that is going to show people how to do that. That is going to in itself hold people accountable. I don't do any of this organizing work, for example, to do interviews with you or, to be plastered anywhere or to be acclaimed. I do it because I know it needs to be done.
Mm.
And I do it because I know that it's going to be a part of building the world that we need right now. Not in the future, not in 5 years, not for our kids. I mean, yes, for the kids, but I'm living right now. I want to be safe right now. I want to be loved right now. So what do I need to do for myself you know, to make that happen? How do I need to talk to, to other people? How do I need to work with other people to show them how I need to be treated, and what we need to do together in order to do that for each other? So we are needed, and doing whatever you need to do to make sure that you enjoy being you and being here and surrounding yourself with, people who also love you and need you and will fight alongside you is one of the most important things that you can do right in this moment.
Mm. Alyssa Quinton, how can people find you if they want to? I'm assuming, hopefully, I hope
Mhm.
you're selling your art. I'm not sure if you are or not, but if you are, how can they see your art, purchase your art? How can they find you? If they're somehow find themselves in Fairbanks, how can they organize with you? How can
Mhm.
they connect with you?
I mean, well, if you're in Fairbanks, we'll probably see each other at the grocery store. Like it's that small where that will probably happen. um, but I have an Instagram. It's Starticles. It's just all one word. I have a website that's called Ghost Body, and that's where you can buy art or you can email me. I'm pretty simple. I don't like to keep things open or closed up, but I try to be easy to find.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a beautiful conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and that's Alyssa Quinton, who's an artist, an artivist, and the interior organizing manager at the Alaska Center. And I am Rev Yearwood, your host of The Cooler Show. Thank you so much for being here, my sister.
Thank you.